The email arrived at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday that started like any other Tuesday in 6 years of Tuesdays. Subject line: Organizational announcement, leadership transition. I didn't need to open it. The whispers had already made 3 laps around the floor before my coffee finished brewing. Sylvie Keller, 27 years old, 18 months with the company, daughter of our CEO, had just been named operations director, my position, the one I'd been grooming myself for since I walked through AtlasMall's glass doors in 2019. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. I read the email twice, not because I didn't understand it, because I wanted to memorize the exact phrasing for later. Ms. Keller brings fresh perspectives and innovative energy to the role. Fresh perspectives. She'd spent her first year here asking me which reports went to which departments. My phone buzzed. Porter Keller himself. My office. 10 minutes. I took 15. Let him stew. Porter's corner office occupied the entire northeast wing of the 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a conqueror's painting. He stood with his back to me, hands clasped behind his expensive suit. You read the announcement. Not a question. I did. And? I placed a printed document on his desk, single page. He turned, frowned at it, picked it up. His face went through 3 distinct colors as he read. Pink, red, purple. This is your resignation letter. Effective 2 weeks from today. I'll transition everything to whoever you want. Probably Sylvie, since she's the new operations director. Drake. His voice dropped to that dangerous register CEOs use when they are trying to sound reasonable while being furious. Is this some kind of negotiation tactic? No, Porter, it's a resignation. You've been here 6 years. Your performance reviews are flawless. You built half our logistics infrastructure from scratch. You're the only person in this building who actually understands our warehouse automation protocols. Then you should have promoted me. I kept my voice level, calm, not bitter, just factual. My daughter is qualified. Your daughter can't read a supply chain flowchart without asking me what the arrows mean. Silence, heavy and thick. Porter's jaw worked. There are considerations you don't understand. Board optics, succession planning. She's being groomed. I know exactly what she's being groomed for, Porter. I smiled, not warmly. Congratulations to Sylvie. I'm sure she'll do just fine. I turned toward the door. Drake, wait. Just give me one reason. A real reason. I paused with my hand on the handle, looked back over my shoulder. Let's just say I've noticed some things lately. Things that make me think AtlasMall isn't the company I thought it was, and I'd rather not be here when it all comes apart. His face went pale. What things? You'll figure it out. I walked out before he could respond. The floor went silent as I crossed back to my cubicle, 20 pairs of eyes tracking me. I sat down, opened my laptop, and got back to work like nothing had happened, because the real work, the important work, was just beginning. AtlasMall wasn't just big, it was massive. We'd started as a scrappy online marketplace in 2015 and exploded into a logistics empire that processed 40 million orders monthly across 17 distribution centers. We connected buyers and sellers, we handled warehousing, shipping, returns, customer service. We were the invisible infrastructure that made modern commerce possible, and we made a fortune doing it. Porter had built something genuinely impressive, but success breeds complacency, and complacency breeds rot. The rot had a name, Trevan, 34 years old, Chief Strategy Officer, Porter's right hand and apparent heir to everything that mattered. Asher had joined 3 years ago from a consulting firm and immediately made himself indispensable. He was brilliant, charismatic, everyone loved him, everyone except me, because I paid attention to things other people ignored, like how Asher's strategy reports always contained recommendations that consolidated power toward his office, like how he'd slowly positioned himself on every important committee and board, like how Porter increasingly deferred to him on major decisions, like how he and Sylvie kept disappearing together. I first noticed it 2 months ago. They'd vanish for 90-minute meetings that never appeared on any calendar. They'd exchange glances across conference rooms, quick, loaded, secretive. Once I saw them in the parking garage at 7 p.m., standing too close, speaking too quietly. Most people would assume affair, office romance between the CEO's daughter and his top executive. Scandalous but mundane. But I'm not most people. I spent 6 years building systems that track everything. Every access point, every login, every authorization change, every document edit. I built those systems to protect the company. Now I was going to use them for something else. My phone buzzed again. Text from Sylvie. Heard about your little tantrum. Very professional, Drake. I didn't respond. Let her think she'd won. The next morning I arrived at 6 a.m., 2 hours before anyone else. The building was quiet except for the night security guard doing his final rounds and the cleaning crew finishing up on the executive floor. I went straight to my desk and opened the system administration portal. My credentials still worked. They wouldn't revoke them until my last day. Stupid mistake on their part, but bureaucracy moves slowly in large companies. I started with Sylvie's account. She'd been made operations director yesterday. That meant someone had modified her system permissions overnight to match her new role. I pulled the access logs. The changes had been made at 11:47 p.m. by an administrator account. Not unusual, IT often made role changes after hours to avoid disrupting workflow. But when I checked which administrator, my screen went still. The account belonged to Trevan. Asher wasn't in IT. He had no business touching access controls. But there he was, at midnight, granting Sylvie privileges that went way beyond operations director. Financial systems, board communications, executive file servers, even portions of the HR database that contained salary information and employment contracts. Why would the operations director need access to executive employment contracts? I dug deeper, followed the breadcrumbs backward through 6 weeks of logs. Asher had been systematically expanding Sylvie's access for over a month. Small increments each time, nothing dramatic enough to trigger automatic alerts. Just gradual, careful privilege escalation. He was positioning her as a super user, someone with keys to nearly every door in the company's digital infrastructure. My hands stopped moving on the keyboard. My brain started connecting pieces I'd been seeing but not fully assembling. Porter had been complaining lately, in that offhand way executives do when they're bothered but trying to seem casual about it. Asher's taking a lot of initiative lately. Asher signed off on the vendor contract before I saw it. Did you send that report to Asher first? I thought I was supposed to review it. Small cracks in his confidence. Tiny questions about whether his second-in-command was respecting boundaries. And now Asher was quietly making Porter's daughter into a digital administrator with access rivaling Porter's own. Either this was the sloppiest IT security I'd ever seen, or it was something much worse. I copied everything to an encrypted drive and deleted my session logs. Then I sat back and let my mind work through possibilities. Scenario 1. Sylvie and Asher were having an affair and being careless with system access. Stupid, but not necessarily sinister. Scenario 2. Asher was building leverage. Insurance. Setting up Sylvie as his puppet in case he needed to move against Porter. Scenario 3. This wasn't just leverage. This was the beginning of a takeover. My money was on 3. The coffee machine gurgled in the break room down the hall. I checked my watch. 7:15. Other people would start arriving soon. I closed the logs and opened my regular work dashboard, pulling up the quarterly logistics report I was supposed to be finishing. The report could wait. I had better things to do. Over the next week, I became a ghost. Professionally pleasant, dutiful. I attended meetings, submitted reports, trained Sylvie on systems she'd need to understand, though she barely paid attention, confident she could just ask me later. But in the margins, early mornings, late evenings, lunch breaks in my car, I conducted a different kind of work. I traced Asher's digital footprints through every system I could access. I found patterns, modifications to approval workflows that routed decisions through his desk, changes to financial authorization thresholds that required his signature, new vendor contracts with companies I'd never heard of, all processed through Asher's office. He was building a parallel command structure, slowly replacing Porter's authority with his own, and Sylvie was his key. Because who would question the CEO's daughter being given responsibility? Porter was grooming his heir. Everyone understood that narrative. It was nepotism, sure, but it was his company. His choice. Except it wasn't his choice. Not really. On Thursday afternoon, I saw them together in Conference Room C. The room had glass walls, but they'd closed the blinds. I walked past slowly, adjusting my pace to catch fragments of conversation. Just need you to sign these access extensions. Asher's voice. Smooth, confident. I don't understand why we need this many. Sylvie, uncertain. Trust me. When you take over operations, you'll need complete visibility. Your father built this company, but he's from another era. The board sees that. They see you as the future. What if Drake suspects something? Asher laughed. It was a cold sound. Drake's a spreadsheet guy. He belongs in a cubicle, not a leadership role. You said it yourself. He has no ambition, no vision. He's nobody. Silence. Then Sylvie, quieter. He's been acting strange since the announcement. Of course he is. His ego's hurt. He thought he deserved your position. But don't worry about Drake. In 2 months, none of this will matter. My jaw clenched. I kept walking before they could sense someone listening. Nobody. Spreadsheet guy. No ambition. They had no idea what I was. But they would. Friday evening. Most of the office had cleared out by 6 p.m. I stayed late, something I did often enough that security wouldn't think twice about it. I needed access to something I couldn't reach remotely. The physical server logs stored on the backup systems in our data center. AtlasMall's data center occupied the basement levels, climate-controlled rooms full of humming machines that processed millions of transactions daily. Technically, I needed authorization to enter outside business hours, but the security guard on duty, Miguel, who I'd helped set up his daughter's laptop last year, waved me through without questions. The server room was cool and loud. Rows of black cabinets lined with blinking lights stretched into the distance. I found the backup storage array and connected my laptop directly to the maintenance port. What I was looking for wouldn't appear in the regular access logs. Those could be modified, deleted, covered up. But backups were different. They captured snapshots of the entire system at regular intervals. Forensic copies that most people forgot existed. I loaded the backup from 6 weeks ago and started comparing it to the current system state. And there it was. The decisive proof I'd been searching for. Someone had created a shadow administrative account, not tied to any real person, just a functional identity with God-level access to everything, financial systems, operational controls, board communications, legal documents, an invisible superuser that could modify anything without leaving obvious traces. The account had been created on July 15th at 2:34 a.m. The creation was logged under a system maintenance ticket that looked completely routine, except the ticket was fake. I cross-referenced it against our IT department's actual maintenance schedule. Nothing matched. Asher had created a ghost account, and he'd been using it to position Sylvie as the visible face of authority, while maintaining his own hidden control. This wasn't just corporate maneuvering. This was a coup, a slow-motion takeover engineered to look like natural succession. I was copying the evidence to my encrypted drive when I heard the server room door open. Footsteps, 2 sets, approaching. I pulled my laptop's cable and shoved it into my bag, then slipped between 2 server cabinets just as voices echoed across the room. "Why are we down here?" Sylvie, annoyed. "Because some things can't be discussed upstairs, Asher." "Did you sign the authorization forms I sent?" "Yes, but I'm getting nervous. What if my father finds out what we're—" "Your father is too paranoid about the wrong things and too trusting about us. That's why this works. You're his daughter, his blind spot. He'll sign anything you put in front of him if you frame it right." "But Drake—" "Forget Drake. He's quitting. 2 weeks and he's gone. And good riddance. He was the only one actually paying attention." My heart hammered. I held perfectly still, barely breathing. "Asher, I need to tell you something." Sylvie's voice dropped. "I'm pregnant." Silence, heavy and sudden. "What?" "I took 3 tests. They're all positive." More silence. I could almost hear Asher's mind racing. "Does anyone know?" "Just you." "Good. Keep it that way. We can't—" "This complicates things, Sylvie. The board can't know. Your father especially can't know. Not until we have control." "Until we have control? Asher, this is a baby. Our baby." "I know. And we'll handle it. But timing matters. In 6 months, AtlasMall will be ours. Yours officially. Mine in practice. Your father will be pushed into a chairman role with no real authority. The board will back us because we'll have demonstrated capability. We just need everything to go exactly according to plan. And if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. Trust me. Just follow my lead. Sign what I tell you to sign. Say what I tell you to say. And in 6 months, you'll be running a $5 billion company." Their footsteps retreated. The door closed. I waited 5 full minutes before moving. My legs were cramped. My mind was racing, pregnant, with Asher's child, hidden from Porter. This was bigger than I'd thought. Asher wasn't just positioning for a corporate takeover. He was building a dynasty, using Sylvie as his vessel. Their child would be Porter's grandchild, the heir to everything. And Porter had no idea his daughter and his most trusted executive were dismantling his life's work from the inside. I finished copying the backup data and left the server room. Miguel waved as I passed through security. I nodded back, casual, like I'd just been doing routine work. Outside, the air was cold. November in the city meant early darkness and wind that cut through clothes. I sat in my car for 15 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. 6 years I'd given this company. 6 years of 60-hour weeks and skipped vacations and missed birthdays. 6 years of watching less competent people get promoted while I stayed in place, told to be patient, told my time would come. And when my time finally did come, they gave it to a 27-year-old who couldn't read a logistics report without help. Not because she was better, because she was leverage. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. The kind you get when you stop pretending things are different than they are. They thought I was nobody. A spreadsheet guy with no ambition. They were going to learn otherwise. Saturday morning, I didn't go into the office. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and 3 monitors I'd borrowed from my home office setup. I spent 8 hours building a document. Not just any document. A masterpiece. 16 pages. Single-spaced. Professionally formatted. Every claim backed by evidence. Every accusation supported by logs, screenshots, recordings, timestamps, and cross-reference data. I started with the basics. Sylvie's unearned promotion, her lack of qualifications, the nepotism everyone whispered about but nobody documented. Then I moved to Asher. His gradual consolidation of power, the shadow administrative account, the modified approval workflows, the vendor contracts with suspicious companies. I'd spent Friday night researching them. 3 were shell corporations with no actual business presence. Then came the relationship. I couldn't prove the affair directly, but I didn't need to. I documented their suspicious meetings, their coordinated access requests. The pregnancy I'd overheard, I couldn't prove it, but I could imply it. Suggest Porter verify it himself. Plant the seed, and finally, the coup. I laid out the timeline. Showed how Asher had systematically positioned Sylvie for control while maintaining his own hidden authority. Explained how the pieces fit together. Made it impossible to see this as anything except what it was, betrayal. The last section was titled Immediate Verification Steps. I gave Porter specific things to check. Access logs he could pull, questions he could ask, people he could talk to. I didn't just make accusations. I gave him a roadmap to confirm everything himself. Because the best revenge isn't just exposing someone, it's making them expose themselves. I saved 17 copies across different encrypted drives and cloud accounts. Then I drafted an email to go with it. The email was short, professional, cold. Porter, attached is the real reason for my resignation. I suggest you read it carefully and verify every claim before taking action. You built something worth protecting, but you can't protect it if you don't see the threat. Drake. I set it to send Monday morning at 9 a.m. That gave me the weekend to make sure I hadn't missed anything. Sunday, I went to the office again. I told myself I was just checking one last detail, making sure my evidence was complete. But really I wanted to see it one more time. Walk through the space where I'd spent 6 years. Remember what I'd built, what I'd believed I was part of. The building was nearly empty on Sundays, just skeleton security and a few workaholics. I went to my cubicle and sat down, looked at the photos I'd pinned to my divider wall. My niece's graduation, a company award from 3 years ago, a postcard from Seattle someone had sent me, small pieces of a life I'd convinced myself mattered here. My phone buzzed. Email notification, Sylvie Keller, subject, transition planning. I opened it. She'd sent a list of projects she expected me to brief her on before I left. 14 items. Some were things I'd worked on for years, complex systems that took months to learn. She expected me to download years of institutional knowledge in 2 weeks, so she could pretend she'd done the work herself. The email ended with, "Please prioritize this. I know you're upset about the promotion, but let's keep things professional." Professional, I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in the empty office. Then I deleted the email without responding. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. I got to the office at 8:30 a.m., half an hour before my scheduled email would send. I wanted to be there when it landed, wanted to see Porter's face when he opened it. But at 8:47 a.m., 11 minutes before my carefully planned revelation, Porter called me into his office. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled shirt, coffee mug shaking slightly in his hand. "Drake, sit down." I sat. "I want to talk about what you said last week, about noticing things, about the company falling apart." He set down his mug and leaned forward. "What did you mean?" My carefully rehearsed timeline suddenly felt wrong. Too slow, too scripted. I made a decision. "How much do you trust Asher?" Porter blinked. "Asher? He's my most reliable executive." "Why?" "And Sylvie. She's my daughter." "That's not what I asked." Porter's face hardened. "What are you implying?" I pulled out my phone, opened the document I'd prepared, slid the phone across his desk. Read the first 3 pages, then tell me if you still want to wait for my email. He picked up the phone, started reading. His expression went from annoyed to confused to pale. This is... He looked up at me. Drake, these are serious accusations. Everything in that document is verifiable. Check the access logs yourself. Pull the backup archives. Ask IT to audit Asher's administrative activities over the past 2 months. You're saying Asher is... What? Staging a takeover? I'm saying Asher is using your daughter to stage a takeover, and she either knows and doesn't care, or she's too naive to see she's being used. Porter stood up, paced to the window, stared out at the city. Why would Sylvie? Because she's in love with him, or thinks she is, and because he's made her believe she deserves to run this company. She does deserve? Porter. I kept my voice level. Your daughter can't read a supply chain report. She doesn't understand operational logistics. She has no strategic vision, and she certainly isn't qualified to have administrative access to your financial systems and board communications. Who gave her that access? Asher, at 11:47 p.m. the night you announced her promotion, without authorization, using administrator credentials he shouldn't have. Silence. Porter turned back from the window. His face had gone from pale to gray. Get out. Porter. I said, get out. I need to think. I stood, walked to the door, paused. The email I'm about to send you has more details. You should read it, all of it, before you talk to either of them. I left before he could respond. At 9 a.m., my email sent automatically. I watched my inbox for a response that didn't come. But at 10:15 a.m., I saw Asher and Sylvie being summoned to Porter's office. They went in together. The door closed. Through the glass walls, I could see Porter's face. Red, furious, moving fast, aggressive gestures, Sylvie crying, Asher calm, too calm, explaining, smoothing things over. 20 minutes later, they emerged. Porter looked exhausted. Asher looked triumphant. Sylvie looked shaken but relieved. My phone buzzed. Porter. My office. Now. Porter stood behind his desk like a judge preparing to deliver sentence. Asher and Sylvie flanked him. United front. Drake. Porter's voice was cold. I've reviewed your accusations. I've discussed them with Asher and Sylvie, and I've concluded that you've misinterpreted routine administrative actions as something sinister. I stayed quiet. Let him continue. Asher explained the access changes. They were approved by IT security and are standard protocol for someone in Sylvie's new role. The vendor contracts you questioned are all legitimate business relationships, and your insinuations about their personal relationship are baseless and inappropriate. Sylvie looked at me with pure hatred. Asher looked sympathetic, like he felt sorry for me. I'm disappointed, Drake. 6 years of good work, and you leave like this, making accusations, trying to damage reputations. Porter sighed. I'm accepting your resignation effective immediately. You don't need to work the 2 weeks. Pack your things. Security will escort you out. I smiled. Not a friendly smile. Did you check the backup archives like I suggested? That's IT's responsibility, not mine. Did you verify the administrative credentials Asher used were properly authorized? Asher is Chief Strategy Officer. He has broad authority. Did you ask Sylvie if she's pregnant? The room went silent, completely silent. Sylvie's face drained of color. Asher's mask slipped for just a second, a flash of rage before he controlled it. Porter looked at his daughter. Sylvie? He's making things up, trying to... Are you pregnant? Dad, this is ridiculous. Answer the question. Tears welled in her eyes. Real ones this time. It's none of his business, but it's true. She looked at the floor, said nothing. Porter turned to Asher. And you knew about this. Porter, it's not what you think. Get out, both of you. I need to speak with Drake alone. Dad, now. They left. Asher shot me a look that promised consequences. Sylvie wouldn't meet my eyes. When the door closed, Porter collapsed into his chair. He suddenly looked much older than 58. How long? I'm not sure, but I overheard them discussing it Friday night, in the server room. They thought they were alone. What else did you hear? I told him. Not everything, just enough. Porter sat in silence for a long time. Then, I built this company from nothing. 23 years. I sacrificed everything. My first marriage, my relationship with my son, my health, All for this. I know. And my own daughter. She's being manipulated, Porter. Asher's good at it. That's what makes him dangerous. You really believe he's trying to take control? I don't believe. I know. And I can prove it. But you have to be willing to look. He rubbed his face. Exhausted. Defeated. What do I need to see? Everything. The backup archives I mentioned, the shadow administrative account, the modified approval workflows, the shell company contracts, all of it. Let me show you. Porter looked at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. We spent 3 hours in his office. I walked him through every piece of evidence, showed him the logs, the fake maintenance tickets, the shell corporations, the timeline of Asher's power consolidation, and I showed him the shadow account, the God-level access that existed outside normal protocols, the invisible hand controlling everything while Sylvie played her role as the visible heir. By the time we finished, Porter looked sick. He's been doing this for months, right under my nose. Longer than that. This started before Sylvie was promoted. The promotion was just the final piece. And she knows? I think she knows pieces, enough to be complicit, but Asher's running the show. Porter stood, paced, stopped at the window. What do you want, Drake? What do you mean? You're not stupid. You documented all of this. You could have just sent it and walked away. Let me deal with the aftermath. Instead, you're here, showing me, helping me understand. He turned from the window. So what do you want? I considered the question. What did I want? I want them to fall. Both of them. I want Sylvie to understand that nepotism isn't a substitute for competence. I want Asher to learn that being smart doesn't make you invincible. And I want you to see what you've built before they tear it apart. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. Porter almost smiled. Almost. You're staying. I need you here. Not as senior analyst, not as operations director under Sylvie. He paused. As my direct report, special advisor to the CEO. You'll have full access to everything, authority to investigate anything, and you'll help me root out every piece of this conspiracy before it goes any further. And Sylvie? Suspended pending investigation. She keeps her title but loses her authority. And Asher? Porter's face went hard. That's more complicated. He's embedded himself everywhere. If I fire him outright, he could trigger defenses I don't even know about yet. We need to move carefully. Or we need to make him trigger them himself. Porter looked at me. Understanding dawned. You want to bait him? I want him to panic, do something stupid, give us cause to remove him publicly and permanently. That's risky. Everything's risky now, but letting him operate freely is riskier. Porter nodded slowly. Then he picked up his phone. Security? This is Porter Keller. Drake Thorin's security escort is canceled. He's staying. And I need you to send someone to my office with a visitor badge. He'll need executive floor access. He hung up, looked at me. Welcome to the war, Drake. The next 48 hours were controlled chaos. Porter reorganized reporting structures. He personally audited access privileges across the executive team. He called emergency meetings with department heads and asked pointed questions about approval processes and authorization chains. And through it all, Asher watched. Calm, professional, slightly concerned but not panicked, because he didn't know yet. Didn't know I'd shown Porter everything, didn't know the floor was crumbling under his feet. Wednesday afternoon, Porter called a mandatory executive meeting. Everyone on the leadership team. Conference room with glass walls where the whole office could see us but not hear us. I sat in the back. Advisor to the CEO. No longer operations analyst. No longer quitting. Sylvie wasn't there. She'd called in sick. Asher arrived last. He saw me in the room and his expression froze for half a second. Then smooth professionalism returned. Porter, Drake, didn't expect to see you here. Plans changed, I said. Clearly. He took his seat. What's this meeting about? Porter stood at the head of the table. Internal audit. We've discovered some irregularities in our administrative processes. Nothing dramatic, but enough to warrant a comprehensive review of all executive access privileges and authorization protocols. The room murmured. Mild concern, but nothing extreme. This kind of corporate housekeeping happened periodically. Asher leaned back. What kind of irregularities? Unauthorized administrative activity, modified approval workflows, access grants that weren't properly documented. IT sometimes makes changes without... This wasn't IT. Porter's voice was flat, hard. This was executive-level modifications using credentials that bypassed normal oversight. Silence. Effective immediately, all executive access will be audited. If you've made any administrative changes in the past 6 months, document them and submit the justification to my office by end of business Friday. Any undocumented changes will result in immediate privilege revocation and potential disciplinary action. More murmurs. Now people look nervous. Asher didn't. He looked thoughtful, calculating. Porter, this seems reactive. Did something specific trigger this? Due diligence. We're a $5 billion company. We should have better controls. Agreed. But the timing is interesting. Asher glanced at me. This wouldn't have anything to do with Drake's recent accusations, would it? Drake brought some concerns to my attention. I investigated. Some concerns were valid, so we're addressing them. What concerns specifically? That's between me and the audit team. Asher smiled. Still calm, still in control. Of course, transparency is important. I'll submit my documentation by Friday. See that you do? The meeting ended. People filed out, whispering. Asher approached me as I gathered my notes. Drake, can we talk? About what? About why you're still here, and what you think you're accomplishing. I looked at him, really looked at him. He was good, really good. Even now, caught in a trap, he maintained perfect composure. I'm helping Porter protect his company. From what? From people who think they're smarter than they are. Asher's smile didn't waver. You know what your problem is. You think you're the hero of the story, the underdog fighting corruption, but you're not. You're just someone who couldn't handle being passed over for a promotion. And you're someone who thought he could steal a company without anyone noticing. Now the smile cracked, just slightly. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sure you don't, which is why you're going to scramble tonight to delete logs and cover tracks, which is why you're going to make mistakes. Because you're good, Asher. But you're not good enough to erase 6 months of evidence overnight. His eyes went cold. The mask dropped completely. You're playing a dangerous game, Drake. So are you. Difference is, I know the board, and I've already shown Porter everything. Lie. I hadn't shown him everything yet. But Asher didn't know that. His jaw clenched. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Porter appeared at my elbow. Think he bought it? He's terrified. He'll move tonight. Good. Let's be ready. We were ready. At 11:30 p.m., I got an alert on my phone. Someone was accessing the server room after hours. Access badge identified as Asher Trevan. I called Porter. He took the bait. I'm 15 minutes away. I'll keep him occupied. I drove to the office faster than I probably should have. The parking garage was empty except for Asher's car and a few overnight cleaning crew vehicles. Security let me through. Porter had cleared me for 24/7 access. I took the stairs down to the basement, slowly, quietly. The server room door was propped open with a chair. Inside, I could hear the hum of machinery and the faint clicking of a keyboard. I stepped through the door. Asher stood at the backup storage array. My backup storage array. The same place I'd been Friday night. His laptop was connected directly to the system. On his screen, I could see deletion scripts running, logs being purged, access histories being erased. He was trying to destroy the evidence. You're not very subtle, I said. He spun. Saw me. His face cycled through surprise, anger, and then cold calculation. Drake, working late? So are you. Interesting timing, considering the audit announcement. Just doing some routine maintenance? At midnight. Personally. Without logging a work order. I'm efficient. You're panicking. He straightened, disconnected his laptop, closed it. I don't panic. Everyone panics when they realize they've lost. I haven't lost anything. You've lost Porter's trust. You've lost your cover. And in about 5 minutes, you're going to lose a lot more. Asher took a step toward me. You think you're clever. You think you've won. But you have no idea what you're dealing with. I've built relationships across this company. Board members, investors, department heads. Even if Porter suspects something, he can't touch me without causing a civil war. Maybe, but he can freeze your access, lock you out of the systems, make you visible instead of invisible. And once you're visible, everyone will start asking questions. And who are they going to believe? Porter's trusted advisor of 3 years, or the bitter analyst who got passed over? They'll believe the evidence, which you just tried to delete, which means you know it's real. Asher's hand moved toward his laptop bag. I tensed, ready for something physical, but he just pulled out a small external drive. This is my insurance policy. Everything I need to prove Porter's mismanagement, his questionable decisions, his declining mental state. If he comes after me, this goes to the board, and they'll remove him. Empty threat. Porter built this company. And companies outgrow their founders all the time. The board knows it. I've made sure they know it. By poisoning them against him for months, yeah, I figured that part out too. Asher smiled. Then you know I'm not as trapped as you think. You're trapped enough. The server room door opened. Porter walked in, flanked by 2 security guards and our head of IT. Asher's confident expression cracked. Asher Trevan. Porter's voice was ice. You're relieved of your duties, effective immediately. Your access privileges are revoked. You'll surrender all company property and devices. Security will escort you out. Porter, this is ridiculous. You tried to delete backup archives, destroy evidence of your administrative fraud. That's termination with cause. I was performing maintenance. At midnight, without authorization, using administrator credentials you shouldn't have. Porter stepped closer. Did you think I wouldn't notice? That I'd just accept your documentation on Friday and move on? I've been watching you for 2 days, Asher. Watching you panic. Watching you scramble. This is a mistake. Call the board. The board already knows. I briefed them this afternoon. Showed them everything Drake found. They're conducting their own investigation, and they're not happy. Asher's face went pale. Porter held out his hand. The external drive. Now. For a moment, I thought Asher would refuse, would run, would do something desperate. But he just stood there, deflated, finally seeing the trap he'd walked into. He handed over the drive. Security moved in, started escorting him toward the door. Asher stopped at the threshold, looked back at me. This isn't over. Yes, it is. They led him away. Porter and I stood in the server room, surrounded by humming machines and blinking lights. Think he'll make trouble? I asked. Probably, but he can't touch us legally, and the board's on alert now. He's done. Porter looked at the storage array Asher had been trying to delete. How much did he erase? Nothing critical. The backups have backups, and I made copies before he could access them. Of course you did. Porter almost smiled. You've been 3 steps ahead this whole time. That's the job. Not anymore. The job's bigger now. He was right. But we weren't done yet, because Asher wasn't the only problem. Sylvie was still out there, still operations director, still Porter's daughter, and we still had to deal with her. Thursday morning, Sylvie returned to the office. She looked terrible, pale, hollow-eyed, like she hadn't slept in days. Word had already spread about Asher's termination. The rumor mill was working overtime. She went straight to Porter's office. I watched from my new desk. Corner cubicle, executive floor, clear sightline to the CEO's office. Through the glass walls, I could see her crying. Porter sitting stone-faced. An argument without sound. It lasted 20 minutes. When she emerged, her face was blotchy and her hands were shaking. She walked past me without acknowledging my existence. An hour later, Porter called me in. She says she didn't know, that Asher manipulated her, that she thought she was just being given appropriate access for her new role. Do you believe her? Porter rubbed his temples. I want to. She's my daughter. But I keep thinking about what you overheard, about them discussing the takeover, about her knowing. She knew enough. Whether that's criminal or just naive, that's your call. I can't fire my own daughter. But you can remove her from operations director. I already did. She's reassigned to strategic planning. Non-operational role. No direct reports, no access to critical systems. That's not enough. Porter's jaw tightened. What do you want me to do? She's 27 and pregnant and just lost the man she thought she loved. How much more punishment? This isn't about punishment, it's about accountability. She wasn't just a victim of Asher's manipulation. She chose to go along with it. She chose to accept a position she wasn't qualified for. She chose to mock the people who actually did the work. She's young. She's an adult, and adults face consequences. Silence. Porter looked old, tired, like the weight of everything was finally hitting him. What do you suggest? Let the board decide. Present them with everything. The access violations, the relationship with Asher, her involvement in the takeover scheme. Let them determine whether she stays. They'll vote to remove her. Maybe. Or maybe they'll see it as a learning moment. Put her through proper training. Make her earn her place instead of inheriting it. I paused. But whatever they decide, it needs to be their decision. Not yours. Because if you protect her now, you're just proving Asher right. That she's your blind spot. Porter stared at me for a long time. Then he nodded. I'll schedule a board meeting. Present the findings. Let them vote. When? Tomorrow afternoon. Give everyone time to review the evidence tonight. Good. I stood to leave. Drake? Yeah? Thank you for not letting me ignore this. for forcing me to see. That's what you're paying me for now. Friday arrived cold and sharp. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. Porter had distributed his evidence summary Thursday night, a sanitized version of my original document, focused on policy violations rather than personal drama. But I had the full version, all of it, and I planned to present it if the board started wavering. At 1:45 p.m., the board members began arriving, 8 external directors plus Porter. Sylvie was not invited, conflict of interest. Asher was obviously not there. But I was, as Porter's advisor and the primary investigator. The conference room felt oppressive. Dark wood, serious faces, the kind of room where careers ended. Porter opened with the basics: access violations, unauthorized administrative activity, compromised security protocols. The board looked concerned but not alarmed. This sounded like IT housekeeping gone wrong. Fixable. Then Porter introduced me. I stood, connected my laptop to the presentation screen, pulled up the full timeline, and I walked them through everything: the shadow administrative account, the shell company contracts, the systematic power consolidation, Asher's relationship with Sylvie, the pregnancy, the overheard conversation about the takeover. By the time I finished, the room was silent. One of the board members, Margaret Chen, former CFO of a Fortune 500 company, spoke first. "This is extensive. How long was this happening?" "At least 6 months," I said. "Possibly longer. Asher was careful, incremental changes, nothing dramatic enough to trigger alerts." "And Sylvie was complicit?" "She knew parts of it, enough to be involved. Whether she understood the full scope, that's debatable." Another board member, James Bradford, venture capitalist, leaned forward. "What's your recommendation, Drake?" "Remove her from any operational authority. Require comprehensive retraining, audit everything she touched, and make it clear that nepotism isn't a business strategy." "That's harsh," someone said. "This was a coup attempt. Harsh is appropriate." Margaret Chen nodded. "I agree. We need to send a message, not just internally, but to investors and partners. AtlasMall takes governance seriously." The discussion went on for another hour. Arguments, counter-arguments, legal considerations. Finally, they voted. 7-1 in favor of removing Sylvie from all executive authority. She would remain an employee. Firing her would invite lawsuits and bad press. But she would be reassigned to a junior analyst position. No direct reports, no system access beyond basic tools, effectively demoted to entry level. Porter's face was unreadable as the votes came in. When the meeting adjourned, he approached me. "You got what you wanted." "This isn't about what I wanted. This is about what the company needed. She's going to hate me." "She already does. Now she'll have to earn her way back." Porter nodded slowly. "Then, what about you? What's next?" "We still have cleanup. Audit all the vendor contracts. Review everyone Asher promoted or hired. Make sure there aren't other time bombs waiting." "And after that?" "After that? I guess we rebuild. Properly this time." Porter almost smiled. "How does Vice President of Operations sound?" I looked at him. "Are you serious?" "You've earned it, and I need someone I can trust in that role. Someone who actually knows what they're doing." Vice President, corner office, real authority, everything I'd wanted 6 years ago. But something felt hollow about it now. Tainted. "Let me think about it," I said. "Fair enough." I left the boardroom and went back to my temporary desk. Sat down, stared at my laptop screen without seeing it. I'd won. Asher was gone. Sylvie was neutered. Porter finally understood what I'd been trying to tell him. So why did it feel incomplete? My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "You think you won. You didn't. This is just the beginning." I stared at the message, then deleted it. Asher was done. He had no power here anymore. No access, no allies. He was just angry, impotent, lashing out. I shut down my laptop and headed home. Tomorrow I'd deal with the cleanup. Tonight I just wanted to breathe. Monday morning I arrived early. The office felt different. Lighter somehow. People were talking normally again. The oppressive tension that had hung over everything for weeks was gone. Asher was gone. His office was being cleaned out. His name removed from directories. His access completely scrubbed from every system. Sylvie's office, too. She'd been moved to a cubicle on the 3rd floor, the junior analyst level, as far from executive territory as possible. Porter had made the announcement Friday afternoon. Vague, but clear. Leadership changes due to internal audit findings. People filled in the gaps themselves. The rumor mill was surprisingly accurate. I spent the morning reviewing Asher's vendor contracts. Most were legitimate, but 3 were shell companies, exactly as I'd suspected. Paper entities with no real business, conduits for money to flow out of AtlasMall into accounts we couldn't trace. Porter authorized a full financial investigation. We'd probably never recover the money, but we could close the holes. At 11 a.m., my phone rang. Porter. My office. He sounded tense. I went upstairs, found Porter at his desk, staring at his computer screen. What's wrong? Check your email. I pulled out my phone, opened my inbox. The subject line made my stomach drop. Final warning, AtlasMall Board of Directors. I opened it. The email was addressed to all board members, several major investors, and key executives. It was long, detailed, and absolutely devastating. It claimed Porter was mentally unstable, paranoid, making erratic decisions, firing loyal employees without cause. The email cited specific incidents, all twisted, all taken out of context, but presented in a way that looked damning. It accused Porter of fabricating evidence against Asher to cover up his own mismanagement. It suggested the board should consider removing Porter as CEO for the good of the company. And it was signed by 17 AtlasMall employees, department heads, senior managers, people who'd worked here for years. Is this real? I asked. I've been calling the names on that list. Half of them claim they never signed it. The other half say Asher approached them weeks ago with concerns about my leadership. Asked them to sign a contingency letter in case things got worse. He set this up before we caught him. Insurance policy, just like he said. I read through the email again. It was good, professionally written, emotionally manipulative. It painted Porter as a tyrant and Asher as a victim. How bad is this? Porter's face was grim. 3 board members have called me, asking if I need to take some time off, suggesting I might be burned out. The vote was 7-1 in your favor. That was before this. Now they're second-guessing, wondering if they were too quick to believe my side. We have evidence. We have logs and access records. Asher has a narrative, and narratives are powerful. I sat down, thought through our options. We need to discredit him, publicly. Show everyone that this letter is exactly what we said he'd do. Manipulation. How? The recording. Porter frowned. What recording? Friday night in the server room, when he threatened you, when he admitted to poisoning the board against you. I paused. I recorded it. You what? I had my phone in my pocket, audio recorder running. I got everything he said about his insurance policy, about making sure the board knew about your declining mental state, about having relationships he could leverage. Is that even legal? Depends on the state, but legality doesn't matter if we're just playing it privately for the board, showing them what he really is. Porter leaned back, calculating. If we play that recording, Asher will lawyer up, claim it's doctored, sue for wrongful termination. Let him. We'll win. And even if we don't, the board will hear him admit to everything. That's worth the legal fight? Maybe. Porter, he's trying to take you down. You built this company. You're not going to let him destroy it from the outside. Porter looked at me. Really looked at me. You're not doing this for me. You're doing this because you hate him. I'm doing this because he called me a spreadsheet guy with no ambition, and I want him to know exactly how wrong he was. Porter almost laughed. Fair enough. We scheduled an emergency board call for that afternoon. Virtual meeting, faster than getting everyone in the same room. At 3 p.m., I joined the video conference. 9 faces and boxes on my screen. Porter in his office, me in mine. Porter opened with a simple statement. The email you received this morning is exactly what we predicted. Asher Trevan is trying to undermine this company because we caught him committing fraud. I'd like Drake to present additional evidence that proves this conclusively. I shared my screen, played the recording from the server room. Asher's voice, clear and confident. I've built relationships across this company. Board members, investors, department heads. Even if Porter suspects something, he can't touch me without causing a civil war. My voice. They'll believe the evidence. Asher. And who are they going to believe? Porter's trusted advisor of 3 years? Or the bitter analyst who got passed over? More conversation. Then the critical line. This is my insurance policy. Everything I need to prove Porter's mismanagement, his questionable decisions, his declining mental state. If he comes after me, this goes to the board, and they'll remove him. The recording ended. Silence on the video call. Uncomfortable, heavy silence. Margaret Chen spoke first. That's damning. It's taken out of context, someone said. What context? I asked. He admits to having an insurance policy. He admits to positioning the board against Porter. He admits the whole thing is strategy. Still, recording someone without consent? He was on company property, attempting to destroy evidence. I documented it. That's not illegal. That's investigation. More silence. James Bradford cleared his throat. I think we've seen enough. Asher's credibility is shot. His email is clearly retaliation. We should disregard it and move forward with the original plan. The other board members nodded. Some reluctantly, but they nodded. Porter looked exhausted but relieved. Thank you. The call ended. I sat back in my chair, let out a breath I'd been holding for hours. We'd won. Again. But I still felt incomplete, because Asher was still out there, still free, still plotting. And Sylvie was still here, still Porter's daughter, still protected by family ties even as she'd tried to help destroy everything. The victory felt temporary, fragile. My phone buzzed. Text from another unknown number. You recorded me, clever, but you're still just a spreadsheet guy playing detective, and you're going to lose everything you think you've won. I stared at the message. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for the next attack. I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I was going to end this. Permanently. Tuesday morning, I did something I'd been avoiding. I went to the 3rd floor and found Sylvie's new cubicle. She was there, head down, working on something that looked like data entry, the kind of mindless work she'd probably assigned to other people a week ago. Sylvie. She looked up. Her face was a mess. Red eyes, no makeup, hair pulled back in a sloppy knot. What do you want? To talk. I don't have anything to say to you. Good, because I'm not here for a conversation. I'm here to give you one chance. She stood up. A chance? You destroyed my career. You humiliated me. You turned my father against me, and now you want to give me a chance? Asher's still trying to take down the company. That email yesterday was just the start. He has more planned. How would you know? Because I know how he thinks. And I know he's not done, which means you're not safe either. She laughed, bitter, broken. Why would you care if I'm safe? I don't, but I care about this company, and if Asher takes it down, everyone suffers, including you. What do you want from me? Information. You were with him for months. You know things he told you, plans he mentioned, people he talked about, anything that might help us predict his next move. Sylvie sat back down, stared at her desk. He told me a lot of things. Most of them were lies. Some weren't, and those are the ones I need. She was quiet for a long time. Then, he has contacts at 3 of our biggest investors, people who owe him favors. He said if things went wrong, he could trigger a vote of no confidence in Porter, force the board to replace him. With who? Someone external. Someone Asher could control. Did he say who? No, but he mentioned it was already arranged. Just needed the right moment. I processed this. What else? He has files. On everyone. Porter, board members, department heads, personal information, compromising information. He called it leverage. Where are these files? I don't know. He never let me see them. Just told me they existed. Think, Sylvie. Did he ever mention where he kept them? A safe deposit box, cloud storage, personal server? She closed her eyes. Concentrated. Once he said something about off-site backup, like it was a joke. I didn't understand what he meant. Off-site backup, not the company servers, somewhere external. Anything else? He's angry, really angry, not just at Porter. At you, he blames you for everything. Said you're the only one who saw through him, the only one who could have stopped him. She looked at me. He wants to hurt you, Drake. Personally. Let him try. I'm serious. He talked about it. About making you pay, about destroying your reputation, your career, everything. He already tried. The email, it didn't work. That was phase 1. He has more planned. I leaned against her cubicle wall. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired, and because you were right. Her voice cracked. I wasn't qualified. I didn't earn the promotion. I just took it because it was offered, and I let Asher use me because I wanted to believe I deserved it. You could have earned it, eventually, if you'd been willing to put in the work. I know. She wiped her eyes. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, because I was wrong. I didn't respond. Apologies didn't undo damage. If Asher contacts you, tell Porter immediately. Don't engage. Don't try to handle it yourself. She nodded. I left her there. Went back to the executive floor. Spent the rest of the day thinking about off-site backups and leverage files and investors who owed favors. Asher was building towards something bigger than an email, and I needed to figure out what before it was too late. That night, I stayed late. Office empty except for security. I pulled up every vendor contract Asher had ever approved, every meeting he'd attended, every email he'd sent, looking for patterns, connections, anything that pointed to his leverage network. At 11 p.m., I found it. A series of payments to a security consulting firm called Blackridge Solutions. 5 payments over 2 years, $50,000 each, categorized as Executive Protection Services. I searched Blackridge Solutions. Website was vague. Comprehensive security analysis for corporate clients. No specific services listed. No client testimonials. Just generic corporate speak. I dug deeper. Found the incorporation documents. Blackridge was registered in Delaware 3 years ago. Single owner. A shell company, which was owned by another shell company, which was owned by... I stopped breathing. The final owner was a trust, and the trustee was Asher Trevan's brother. This wasn't a security consulting firm. This was Asher's personal leverage operation. He'd been using company money to pay his own organization to gather information on AtlasMall executives. I copied everything, sent it to Porter with a subject line. Found it. Then I went home and didn't sleep. Wednesday morning, Porter called an emergency executive meeting, just his inner circle. Me, the CFO, the general counsel, and the head of IT. Drake found proof that Asher's been running an intelligence operation against the company for 3 years, using our money. Blackridge Solutions is his personal entity. The general counsel went pale. That's embezzlement. Fraud. We can press charges. We will, but first we need to understand the scope. What information did he gather? Who did he target? What's he planning to do with it? We should contact Blackridge directly, the CFO suggested. Demand they turn over everything. They'll refuse, I said. It's his brother's company. They'll claim attorney-client privilege or some other protection. Then what do we do? I looked at Porter. We make him come to us. How? We threaten the one thing he cares about more than control. His reputation, his future employability, his freedom. Porter frowned. You want to go public? Not yet. First, we let him know we found Blackridge, that we're going to the authorities, that he's facing criminal charges, and we give him one option. Turn over everything he has and disappear, or go to prison. He'll never take that deal. He will if he thinks it's his only option, and if we make it public enough that other companies won't touch him. The general counsel shook his head. This is aggressive, possibly too aggressive. We should let law enforcement handle it. Law enforcement will take months, maybe years. Meanwhile, Asher uses his leverage to destroy us from the outside. I turned to Porter. You hired me to fix this. Let me fix it. Porter was quiet for a long moment. Then, do it, but carefully. I don't want this turning into a scandal that hurts us more than him. It won't. I left the meeting and got to work. First step, contact the investors Sylvie mentioned, the ones who owed Asher favors. I identified them through board meeting notes and investment documents. 3 names, 3 firms with significant stakes in AtlasMall. I called each one, introduced myself as advisor to the CEO, scheduled meetings for Thursday. Second step, prepare the evidence. Everything about Blackridge, everything about Asher's fraud, everything about his takeover attempt, a complete package that proved exactly what he was. Third step, draft the press release. We'd hold it, not publish it unless Asher forced our hand, but having it ready was leverage. By Wednesday night, I had everything in place. Thursday morning, I met with the first investor, showed him the evidence, explained that Asher had been using his relationship with them to position himself for a coup. The investor went pale. I had no idea. I believe you, but now you know. And if Asher approaches you about a vote of no confidence in Porter, you'll refuse, and you'll inform us immediately. Of course. Same conversation with the other 2 investors, same results. Asher's network was collapsing. Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Drake Thorin. You're making a mistake. Asher's voice, cold, controlled. Whatever you think you found, it's not enough. I found Blackridge. I found the payments. I found your brother. It's enough. Silence. Then, you don't know what you're dealing with. I know exactly what I'm dealing with. A corporate thief who thought he was smarter than everyone else. I offered you a way out. I could have made you part of this. But you chose Porter. You chose the wrong side. There are no sides. There's just right and wrong, and you're wrong. We'll see. He hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, heart racing. This was it. The final confrontation. Everything had been leading here, and I was ready. Friday morning started with another email. This one went to everyone. Every AtlasMall employee, every investor, every board member, the press. Subject: the truth about AtlasMall. I opened it, read the first paragraph, felt my stomach drop. It was everything. Every piece of information Asher had gathered through Blackridge. Personal scandals, financial mistakes, embarrassing incidents, all carefully packaged and presented as proof that AtlasMall's leadership was corrupt. Porter's messy divorce 10 years ago, the general counsel's DUI from 2019, the CFO's bankruptcy from before he joined the company. Small things, old things, irrelevant things. But presented together, they looked damning, and buried in the middle was a section about me, my failed startup from 15 years ago, the investors I'd disappointed, the people who'd lost money betting on me. Drake Thorin, the email read, is a failed entrepreneur who couldn't build his own company, so he attached himself to someone else's success. He's not an advisor, he's a parasite. I read it twice. Then I called Porter. I saw it, he said before I could speak. What do we do? Emergency board meeting. Today. We end this now. Porter. Drake, trust me, this is his last move, and we're going to crush it. Porter scheduled the emergency board meeting for 2 p.m. Physical attendance required. No video calls. Everyone in the same room. I spent the morning preparing. Every piece of evidence. Every recording. Every log. Every document. I built a presentation that would leave no doubt. At 1:45 p.m., the board members started arriving. Porter had also summoned the company's top executives. And Sylvie, he'd ordered her presence despite her demotion. The conference room filled. Tense faces, worried murmurs. At 2:00 p.m. exactly, the door opened. Asher Trevan walked in. The room went silent. What is he doing here? Someone demanded. I invited him, Porter said coldly, because this ends today, in front of witnesses. Asher smiled, confident, like he'd already won. Porter, board members, thank you for having me. Sit down and shut up, Porter said. Drake, present your evidence. I stood, connected my laptop to the screen, started the presentation. I showed them everything. The Blackridge payments, the shell companies, the embezzlement, the shadow administrative account, the timeline of the takeover attempt. Then I played the recordings, every conversation I'd captured, Asher admitting his insurance policy, Asher discussing the coup with Sylvie, Asher threatening to destroy Porter. The board members' faces went from concerned to horrified. This is fabricated, Asher said calmly. Drake has a vendetta. He's manipulating. Shut up. Margaret Chen's voice cut through the room like ice. We've heard enough from you. These recordings are taken out of context. The context, I said, is that you committed fraud. You embezzled company funds. You attempted a corporate coup, and when you got caught, you tried to destroy everyone who exposed you. Asher stood. This is ridiculous. I'm leaving. Security, Porter said into his phone. Now. The door opened. 2 security guards entered, followed by 2 police officers. Asher's face went pale. What is this? This, Porter said, is justice. Detective Morrison stepped forward. Asher Trevan, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and computer crimes. You have the right to remain silent. Asher tried to back away. The officers grabbed his arms, pulled them behind his back. Handcuffs clicked into place. This isn't over, Asher shouted as they dragged him toward the door. I'll bury all of you. I have information that will... You have nothing, I said quietly. Your brother turned over everything from Blackridge this morning. Every file, every piece of leverage. It's all gone. Asher's face collapsed. The confidence shattered. He looked suddenly small. Pathetic. They pulled him out of the conference room. His shouting echoed down the hallway, then faded. Silence. Porter turned to Sylvie. She sat frozen in her chair, tears streaming down her face. You're staying at this company, Porter said, but you'll earn your place. Every step, no shortcuts, no special treatment. If you can't accept that, there's the door. Sylvie nodded, couldn't speak. Porter looked at the board. Effective immediately, Drake Thorin is promoted to Vice President of Operations. Anyone have objections? Nobody spoke. Margaret Chen stood, walked over to me, extended her hand. Welcome to the executive team, Drake. I shook her hand, looked around the room at all the faces that had dismissed me, overlooked me, underestimated me. Porter caught my eye, gave me a single sharp nod. Acknowledgement, respect, victory. I smiled.